Hi. On behalf of AFT and Share My Lesson, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar and how to launch electric vehicle training at your school. My name is Kate Salasky. I'm the Senior Associate of CTE, and I will be your moderator. So the first step today, we're going to watch a short video on how our webinars work.
Welcome to Share My Lesson webinars. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping tips. We'd love to create an interactive and engaging space. Please open the group chat widget. Tell us where you're from and why you chose this webinar today. This is also your place to interact with other participants and our presenters. Express your thoughts. Using the Reactions widget, you can provide feedback about the presentation. Your feedback is invaluable to us and our presenting team. If you have questions for the presenters, use the Q&A widget to ask them. For technical support during a live session, we've got you covered. You can ask tech questions in the same widget. If your screen freezes or you lose audio, please refresh your browser. If you're in search of resources for this session, you can find them listed in the Resource List widget. When the webinar concludes, please take a moment to rate and review this session. This helps Share My Lesson users find the best content and influences future webinars. You may be here for professional development credit. To qualify, watch for at least 35 minutes of the presentation and answer at least 2 poll questions. These will appear under the slide widget. At the end of the session, click on the certificate icon to download your certificate. From all of us on the AFT Share My Lesson team, thank you for joining us and enjoy the webinar.
All right, so we're going to get it started by taking our sample and practice poll question. So, does your school or district accept Share My Lesson certificates for PD credit? If you can just take a moment and click yes, no, or I'm not sure, but I'll find out. All our polls today will pop up on your screen with the audio alert. Be sure to hit submit to make sure your answers are recorded. All right. So yes, a lot of PD credit. That's great. That's like excellent news and what we want to hear. So AFT continues to prioritize career and technical education. This session today is to provide information about career pathways in EV and how it can be applied to engaging students in your classroom. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Mavrick Knoles, the president and co-founder of Legacy EV. You can read his bio on the right-hand side of your screen. And thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. It's an honor to be here with everyone today. As Kate mentioned, I'm going to speak with you a little bit today about how to bring electric vehicle training to your school. My name is Mavrick. I'm the president and co-founder of Legacy EV. I actually started my career in education. I joined a program called Teach for America, if you're familiar, and I did my 2-year core experience in Phoenix, Arizona. I didn't plan on staying in education long term, but really just fell in love with teaching and ended up finding it really hard to leave the classroom. After I finished my core experience, I had the opportunity to join a charter network up in Washington State. I was just getting started, and I was able to join the math team as the math director and lead a team of teachers in building project-based learning curriculum for students, all focused on math, but that was tied to really hands-on learning and career and technical education standards. So really was inspired by the work that I did and the work I did with those teachers there, and was excited to bring that into industry, into the EV space. And so I'll get into a little bit of the history of legacy EV, but I will try not to spend too much time on this. But our core focus at Legacy EV is on, number one, education, building the workforce of tomorrow for the automotive industry. And two is supporting that workforce with the parts and products they need to actually build, service, and repair electric vehicles. My co-founder, Rob, his background is in electrical systems integration. He was a journeyman electrician, came through the apprenticeship and became a master electrician, and was a lifelong gearhead. So obsessed with cars and grew up building cars. And I was his EV friend that he knew. And so when he went to start Legacy, he knew that I knew about electric vehicles, and also I had a background in teaching. And so we wanted to start out by building a network of trained shops that could do work on electric vehicles. And as we started building the business, we realized that there was also a lot of opportunity to really focus on building the workforce of tomorrow. So that really became our key focus as a business. And today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about just how you can bring electric vehicles into your course curriculum. I will say at the top of the call, we have a lot of products that we've built and that we provide to schools. We sell to schools hardware, instructor training, and student curriculum. Although I won't spend my time today making this a sales pitch on our products or anything like that. I'm really focused on how can I take the learnings that we've had at Legacy and make those available to you as you consider potentially bringing EV training into your program. So with that, I'd love to know a little bit more about everyone here on the call. Where is your school located? You can go ahead and answer here in the poll feature. We'll give everybody a minute to answer here. And I'll go ahead and keep moving. I think, does the poll stay open, Kate? Do you know while I keep moving? I should know this ahead of time. I'm sorry if I don't.
Yes, it should stay open for them to
complete.
Okay.
I'll keep moving through the slides then, and you can answer this question as we keep going. So to go over a quick agenda of what I'll be presenting on with you all today, we've already gone over welcomes and introductions. I'll talk a little bit about the workforce gap that we're seeing in the automotive industry, specifically related to EVs and why training is so critical. I'll also talk about key considerations before launching electric vehicle training within your school. We'll talk about what it looks like to build a sustainable and scalable program, and then we'll look at some real schools and real results to build a roadmap for success. Then we'll open up for live Q&A, and I'll leave you with some ways to engage if you want to get in touch with myself or anyone on our team. So taking a look at the EV workforce gap and why training right now more than ever is so critical. Well, as I'm sure you've seen in the news, the EV adoption and EV sales has just increased drastically over the last several years. It was really in 2012 when electric vehicle sales started to take off, and it's continued to expand at a drastic rate since then. We're approximately 7.3% of all new car sales in 2023 were EVs, and it's projected that by 2030, 30 to 40% of all new vehicle sales will be electric. So that's a rapid increase year over year of this new technology hitting the road. And we need to really skate to where the puck is going as instructors. How do we teach the students of tomorrow for the jobs of tomorrow as well? On top of the fact that we're introducing this new technology at a blistering pace across the automotive industry, there's already a shortage for qualified automotive workers across industry. The U.S. faces an annual shortage of about 76,000 automotive technicians through 2026. And so many of you on this call are already working to help fill that gap. And the EV adoption just furthers that gap, where only 1.5% of ASE certified technicians hold an EV certification as of 2023. So even the existing workforce that we have out there, very small percentage of them have certificates to work on electric vehicles. And this is just a snapshot of the rapid growth and investment that we're seeing in EVs and battery technology. So there's a bunch of investments going into building these EVs here in the country. Rivian just announced to build a new plant in Georgia. Ford's building a new assembly line process to build a new lower price entry point electric vehicle truck. And so there's tons of investment going into both battery and electric vehicle production all around the United States. And we haven't built batteries at this scale yet in the country. So there's lots of new training that needs to go into building out this workforce and training students to be prepared for these jobs of tomorrow. And challenges still exist in educating the workforce of tomorrow for electric vehicles. So when we first launched Legacy EV, we really identified 4 key challenges in bringing EV programming to schools around the country. The first one is this is also new to instructors. So instructors don't feel very comfortable going out and teaching about this technology for the first time. They really need access to more training to better understand the technology so they can bring that back to their students. The second is there haven't been a ton of common standards for what it means to demonstrate mastery as an electric vehicle technician. There have been more standards coming out, which is great, and that really helps guide our training, but making sure that's uniform across manufacturers is extremely important. And then third, there was really no curriculum or tools available for instructors who were looking to teach this for the first time. So any school that was looking to build out an EV program was having to start from scratch and build curriculum from the ground up. And then the fourth is there was really no learning aids or hardware lab equipment that was designed to be brand agnostic to teach students about these vehicles. We see that in our ICE automotive classes with different lab equipment, but there really wasn't anything yet in electric vehicle technology. And so what should you consider when getting ready to launch an EV program? We're going to walk through 4 main factors to think about as you're getting ready to launch EV training at your school. The first one is looking externally and identifying workforce gaps within your community and within your region. What are the jobs that are related to EVs and how can you meet them within your school's training program? The second is how can you look internally, look within your school and what's the anatomy of a successful program look like and how can you emulate that as you bring in electric vehicle training as a part of your program? And then the third is considering the entire talent pipeline. So not only like what programs can feed yours with students that are interested in EVs, but also what programs or jobs can your students go into when they graduate. And then the fourth is thinking about funding early in the journey. So, getting new lab equipment can be expensive, getting training to be able to teach the programs and adding this into your school costs money. So what are success stories that we've seen and how you can fund these programs? And we'll share some tips and tricks with you on what that looks like. But before we dive into that, where are you at in your EV education journey? Are you just getting started? Do you know little to nothing about EVs? Do you have some basic knowledge but want to learn more? Are you fairly knowledgeable and follow EV developments? You're very knowledgeable and you're teaching others about EVs already? Or would you prefer not to answer? Go ahead and throw your answers on the screen. We'll leave the poll up for everyone as they're going through. All right, looks like we got people who are just getting started to learn more about EVs. So getting ready to think about bringing EVs into your school, the first thing that you can do is look externally. Identify what are the workforce gaps in your region. Now, this can vary quite a bit from school to school. Maybe you're in Tennessee and there's the new Ultium factory for building new battery cells, and you really want to prepare students for jobs in battery cell manufacturing. Or maybe you're in LA and there's a ton of EVs on the road, and there's a lot of used EVs that are out of warranty, and there's third-party shops starting to pop up. And there's businesses that need more trained technicians to come in and fill the role to be able to fix and repair these EVs. These jobs can range. One thing that's amazing about the electric vehicle is that it's a microcosm of so many other skill sets as well. And I'll get into this a little bit more later in the presentation. But when you're learning about the electric vehicle, you're learning electrical theory and what goes into stationary energy storage systems, which can be applicable to renewable energy, wind, solar, and how do we generate and store power. But it can also be related to mechatronics and jobs that you might see coming out in drones, where a drone is an electric vehicle. It's got a battery and a motor, and it's got a control system that controls that motor to navigate the world around us. So there's so many different curricular connections that we can make on the electric vehicle. And so really identifying where are the jobs in my community and how can I build student experiences to go out and meet that job need. The second tip that we have is to look internally. What does the anatomy of a successful program look like at your institution? This could be a variety of programs. It could be in advanced manufacturing, it could be in energy systems or mechatronics or something else. And really looking at like what are the skills and how can I work with that program and emulate what that program does really well to build out my EV program. And the third step is to consider the entire talent pipeline. I think this one's really important because you're thinking about what programs can I connect to in earlier grades that are going to make students really excited to come into my automotive program. So maybe there's a first robotics program at the middle school, and you're really wanting to show those students that are in the robotics course that, hey, the electric vehicle has a lot of those same engineering concepts that you're doing in first robotics. You can come learn more about that technology here in our CTE class and learn about what it's like to build an electric vehicle or to repair an electric vehicle, and really start to make those connections and think about how can we feed this program that we're building to make sure it's sustainable and scalable. But then too, how can you work with programs that are beyond yours so that your students may graduate and go into when they complete it, and get them excited about what's the next step in their education journey and what does that look like. And then the fourth is thinking about funding early in the journey. So of course, there's Perkins funding for regular CTE programs, but we found that there's a lot of grants that have come available over the years to help build new workforce programs focused on these energies of impact or sectors of impact that we're really interested in building in America around. So new battery jobs. There's been some grants that have come out over the last few years for building workforce programs that teach students for jobs in the battery industry. That could be Department of Energy workforce grants, state-specific workforce grants, and CTE grants, or even grants from utility companies. So working with your local grants team and saying, hey, I want to build a program like this. Can you keep an eye out and see if there's funding opportunities to go out and apply for, where we can build out a comprehensive program to teach students about EV technology. And so after going through key considerations of building an EV program, let's talk about what it looks like to build a sustainable and scalable learning program. So first, we'll go over understanding student learning pathways. Like, what are the standards that make up teaching about EVs? Second, we'll go over the importance of brand agnostic training within your EV program. Third, we'll talk about how to adopt industry recognized certifications. And then fourth, preparing instructors with quality training. So step one, understanding student learning pathways. Really understanding EV and high voltage systems is new to students. So how can we develop structured learning experiences that build upon each other and progressively release students into working on these vehicles in a safe manner? So there's ways to really build this gradual release of working on the electric vehicle as you start out with students. And now there's lab equipment that's designed that starts as early as like 48 volts all the way up to your full 400 volt system, where you can start getting students exposure through simulated activities around high voltage to help build the skills that are needed to build up to that like ASE XEV2 standard or even the ASE L3 standard to really be able to work on electric vehicles and high voltage systems. And we'll get into those standards more in one of the next few slides here. A second key consideration for building a sustainable and scalable program is the importance of brand agnostic training. And the reason I want to touch on this specifically is because we're already doing this in our like ICE or gas automotive CTE programming, right? We have like a general engine transmissions programs. We're doing these like programs in a brand agnostic level that's really teaching students how do these systems function and how do they work. And one thing that we've seen is like some schools may invest really heavily in just really building out their program to be like around these Nissan Leafs because they were able to pick some up at auction, which getting started wherever you can get started is a win. So if that's what it looks like for your school, that's great. But one thing that we've seen as schools do that is you might run into, all right, well, now our students really understand the Leaf, but that's this one type of battery chemistry. It's this one type of motor. How do we prepare them for like vehicles and skills beyond that one like scope of technology? Even the voltages between like an LFP chemistry in a vehicle and an NMC chemistry in a vehicle are different. So understanding that those are two different like battery cell chemistry types and how working on them may vary is extremely important, because as you're getting voltage readings, that's going to change how you're going to assess and diagnose what's wrong with that vehicle. So building out the fundamentals first is really key. And doing that from a brand agnostic approach is key. Whether that means you can get a variety of vehicles within your program to be able to use to teach, or you can work with brand agnostic lab equipment to be able to build that program, is really important. And it helps future-proof your program, but it also helps build some dynamism for your students where they have more flexibility over what career pathway they can go into. If they just go through a program just on one make or manufacturer, they may be more limited in what their career options are when they graduate. So the program being brand agnostic, it really helps your students to have more advocacy in their career and where they want to go when they graduate. And the third consideration is building your program around industry recognized standards. So ASE has XEV1 and XEV2 standards that have been released, and these are really on how to work safely in an electrically safe work condition. And it's all about really de-energizing systems through best practices. And then beyond that, there's the L1, L2, and L3 test, which are really around hybrid electric vehicles and full battery electric vehicles. The XEV1 and XEV2 standards are really focused on safety and best practices, less focused on like componentry and diagnostics, while the L3 does get more into like the service and repair side of the vehicle, where you're understanding components more so. So really looking, before you start building a program, what are the standards that are available? There's some other standards that have come out. I worked with a nonprofit group called the Electric Vehicle Standards Council that develops standards that really get into the specific components, but there's also new groups, AvTech and NevTech are also standardizing entities. So when you're getting ready to build out a program or to get curriculum for your class, really looking at, is this sufficient? Does it meet the standards that are out there that industry is looking for to hire my students? Is a really helpful way to start thinking about your program. I'm also giving a lot of information here, and I just wanted to point out too that we have a 50-page guide on how to bring EV training to your school as an available resource here on the call, where a lot of these different standardizing entities and stuff are linked in there, so you can go find those and reference them. You don't need to be frantically writing it down as I'm going through it. And fourth here is how can we prepare instructors with quality training? So this is actually where we started as Legacy. We really just started saying, okay, we want to help instructors feel comfortable to teach these programs. So let's get them access to training so they can learn about the EV and take that back to their school and teach their students. We continue to evolve our program offerings after that, but there's quite a few options now today for instructor training, whether that's Weber State or another program locally that has EV training that you can go visit and emulate. There's a lot of cross-curricular collaboration happening right now and cross-programmatic collaboration happening right now. So if you have a program in mind that is doing EV training, to even be able to go sit in and shadow some of their programs is something we've seen instructors do, where they get a lot out of that experience. So diving into what this has actually looked like rubber on the pavement, no pun intended, on launching a successful EV program. So common challenges for schools are really increasing the need to expose high school students to alternative career pathways in automotive, but the struggle to engage students with exciting new technologies like EVs. So, we had one school that we launched with in Texas that they were really having a hard time filling the seats in their automotive program, because there's been a shift in some areas where students are looking at automotive as though it's a more undesirable career pathway. And that's just not the case. This program, the automotive industry has changed so much over the years. When you're working in EV, there's no oil changes in this system. It's a computer on wheels, and it has extremely high heat efficiency. It's really a much different job than what students are used to. And so building out some ways to showcase that to your school is really interesting. And one program we saw that's had a ton of success is Mind Drive in Kansas City. They actually had Jason Kelsey donate his K10 as a project vehicle for their school. And those students are working together to convert it from gas to electric. Oz, the instructor there, got trained with us, and we're providing them with the tools they need to convert that vehicle from gas to electric. But that's something that just like drives so much interest in their school's program and gets students so excited about like, okay, wait, jobs in auto are different than maybe how I envision them. And this industry is shifting. It's exciting and feels innovative. How can I go be a part of that? And so like getting eyeballs on the cool things that your program is doing is a really important part. And that's something that I think MindDrive did really well in Kansas City. Choose a partner to help you succeed. So I start off the call by going over like some of the key challenges for bringing an EV program to your school. You know, instructor training, curriculum, hardware. That was really the problem of 2020 when we started Legacy EV, that those things didn't exist. Fast forward to today, there's several options now for instructor training, for getting your hands on curriculum and hardware to teach these courses. We, of course, have products that we offer in this space, but there's also other products to choose from as well. So if you're looking at like starting an EV program, you have options to evaluate, and you can compare and choose what's best for you. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel to do that. So there's tons of tools out there to help you. And if you're interested in sorting those through, like there's tons of info online, and our guide dives into this a little bit more as well. And then determining your teaching tools. So, you know, there's tons of options for how you can teach an EV course. We've got programs that start on go-kart chassis, on like a 30-volt system, to a 48-volt system, to a full training lab simulator, which is an EV powertrain that sits out on a table, and it's got every component that goes into an EV, but it's just already out of the vehicle, sitting on your table, ready to go and simulate the experience of like working on building and diagnosing, servicing, and repairing an electric vehicle. So you have tons of options for tools you can use, and choosing the right tool is a great place to start, making sure you choose something that's going to serve you as the instructor and your students well. And then designing your program's content. So we talked a little bit about this already, but building to industry standards is a key consideration. But also there's some curriculum out there already that you can use to build your program around. So we built curriculum content. There's other curriculum companies out there too that you can work with to bring these programs into your schools. And evaluating and making sure that they fit your instructional style and how you want to teach about EVs is really key. And then picking professional development and continuing education. So I dove into this already. I won't spend much more time, but there's online trainings, there's in-person trainings that you can do. We have one online training that teaches to the ACEV XEV1 program. That's our high voltage level 1 training program. We also have an XEV2. That's our high voltage level 2 training program. And then we have a full certification boot camp, which is like 1 week in person here at our facility. To date, we've trained technicians from over 20 countries around the world in that 1 week boot camp. And it's always fun to see instructors come together from all over the world to work together to teach or to learn about how to teach. And it kind of feels like summer camp for gearheads every time we host one. So if you're interested in learning more, happy to chat about that with you at any time as well. So some big key takeaways from really what we're learning from other schools as we've scaled out EV training around the country is, one, industry involvement is crucial. You want to understand what the job opportunities are in your region before launching programs. So asking industry, you know, where do you see the demand? Are you seeing a need for more EV trained technicians in your company? And how can we support that? And their involvement will help guide how you teach and what you teach in your EV programming. The second key lesson is hands-on learning builds student confidence. So really going beyond just the textbook, but giving students like experiences where they can actually get hands-on electric vehicle technology is really key. And then the third is preparing students for a wide array of careers, because this is like my favorite thing about the EV, and I said this earlier, but students who go through EV programs aren't necessarily getting jobs in automotive or on EVs, but they may be going into a drone servicing role or advanced manufacturing or EV charging installation or even instrumentation technology. Like there's so many different ways a student can go once they understand the fundamentals of electrical theory that is within an electric vehicle, that really just builds them this roadmap for success in their career. So being able to and willing to look outside automotive to how you like collaborate with other career fields, I think is a really interesting opportunity we have as we're building EV training. And so if you're interested in more ways to engage and to meet with us, there's a guide, how to launch EV training at your school, that you can download here. It's a resource available on the call. You can meet with educational specialists on our teams and just ask them about, more learnings that they've had, or what would it look like to bring EV training to their school. And they'll be a great resource for you. You can get trained. We're offering free high voltage level 1 certification to instructors right now. So if you're interested in just dipping your toe in the water and learning more about EVs, like I highly recommend take our high voltage level 1 certification. It teaches for the ACEV XEV1 standard, and it's a great spot to just start learning about electric vehicles. And then we have a newsletter. It's called the EV Educator. If you're interested in just like a regular cadence of email updates around EVs, like subscribe to that. It's got some good content. We highlight what different schools are doing and how they've built their roadmap to success for EV training, which is a great tool that's available to you. So I recommend you check out all 4 of those options if you're interested. And with that, let's open it up to some Q&A. And if there's any questions from the crowd, I think Kate is going to jot those down for us, and we can go over those here as a group.
Yes. Well, thank you first. This was a great presentation, learning more about legacy EV and also EV vehicles and career pathways. Yes, please input any of your questions, especially that you have for Mavrick or myself, in the Q&A. But I have our first question here, which is, you talked about being able to afford the equipment for this career path. But are there any grants or funding that a teacher or administration could use to make it more accessible?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really varies state by state. And I would say if you're interested in seeing if there's any current funding opportunities in your region, feel free to reach out to one of our educational specialists to see if there is anything in that area. But one example would be MASEC, which is Massachusetts Clean Energy Commission. They hosted a grant for up to $500,000 to build out EV programming in schools in the state of Massachusetts. And we had a school district in Massachusetts be awarded that grant to build out EV education. And so they're getting a bunch of lab equipment. They're able to update their labs to be able to include EV training in their automotive program. And so that's just one example, but the Vehicle Technology Office hosts grants around this, the DOL, Department of Labor, and the Department of Energy. And so we try and include whenever these grants pop up in our EV Educator newsletter. It's hard for me to give a succinct answer to everyone on the call because they vary so much region by region. I don't believe there's any federal grants open right now, but there are tons of nonprofit and NGO organizations in different states that have some open.
Great, thank you. The next question is we talked about training teachers and you went over that, but what about guidance counselors? How do we introduce them to the EV career path?
Oh man, that's a great question. I don't think I've been asked that one before. Yeah, I mean, I think that really taking a look at what are the developing career pathways in this space is really key. Unfortunately, I don't have a systematic answer of go here and you can learn about as a guidance counselor, this is what you should do to teach your students about careers in EVs. There's lots of studies that have been published around this. So the Upjohn Institute posted a study, I want to say it's probably 3 years ago now, but that there was an estimated 300,000 jobs, give or take a few thousand, I might be off by a little bit there, but about 300,000 jobs to be created in the battery value chain. So from battery manufacturing to battery service and repair, battery recycling, as well as the supply chain, the greater supply chain connected to battery development. And so understanding where those career pathways are going as a guidance counselor, I think is really important because I gave this analogy at the beginning of the call, but the pace of evolution right now is so fast across the EV industry that we really need to be thinking about how are we skating to where the puck is going. because it's moving, and we need to be like meeting the careers where they're happening. There is a lot of good data in our 50-page guide on like where job demand is growing in the EV industry. So that's a good place to start if you want to check out some more info other than what I just shared.
Great. This is from Tina. What arguments are there to counter students saying that mining for EV batteries pollutes the environment?
That's a great question. There's a lot of good data out there now on like how much carbon emissions and particulate emissions are saved at the tailpipe over the cost of the emissions through like the mining process of, creating new batteries. And it's for sure like mining for new batteries and creating batteries is like an emissions heavy process, but the amount of emissions the electric vehicle saves over the life of that vehicle is in almost every use case or scenario still like a net positive for the environment. One thing that I'll say is like a personal opinion of mine is that like I think we as like a society and as a country care way too much about the range of our vehicles. And so that makes the battery packs way too big. Like we can be making way smaller batteries and having way less range in our vehicles, and really reducing the emissions of the manufacturing process of these vehicles by quite a bit. On average, it's like, I think it's 80% of the average American's commute is less than 30 miles. But yet we're building these cars to have like 350-mile range for like 2 or 3 road trips you take in a year. And there's just so many other options we have to be able to do that. And one thing that I think is going to prove this to be true to a lot of people is when people start buying plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Those often have like 20 to 25-mile ranges. And what I've heard from a lot of people who own plug-in hybrid electric vehicles is they're realizing they've gone like 6 to 8 months without ever turning on the gas part of their car. They've been getting by on this like 20 to 25-mile range. And so I think that will help frame and like put into context for people how small we can be making these batteries, which will be good for the environment in the long run as we're like building more vehicles and getting them out there. Because I do think we need to be really conscious about the impact of the mining that goes into these batteries that we're putting out onto the roads.
Great. And our last question, is investing in EV in schools going to make a big difference for students to get jobs after school, after they graduate?
Yeah, this is a great question. So because EVs are so new, there's not a ton of data out there on like career pathways and what it actually looks like placed in the workforce. The limited amount of studies that have been done have shown really drastic results for students. So students who are EV trained or have EV certifications that are like working on EVs in their dealership setting or service center setting are earning 30 to 40% more on average than their counterparts who are just trained on ICE or gas vehicles. The wait time to repair EVs is really long. And so dealerships and service centers are really wanting to get these trained technicians in so they can get the vehicles out and get them back on the road. And so that's driving a premium for those technicians who are trained on this and willing to work on it, which is, I think, is really key.
Great. Thank you. So we can move on to the next slide, and we're going to spend some time going over some of the resources available.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so we'll be quick here as I know we're getting close to time, but thank you everyone for hopping on the call and joining today. So appreciative of everybody taking the time. Here's a dive into some more resources. This is the full guide. This is the 50-page guide that we referred to. It's in depth. It provides detailed instructions on how to bring the things that we talked about in today's call to life in your school. It's loaded with tons of additional content to help you bring EV education and programming to your school. So it's a great place to start if you want to learn more about what we've discussed so far on the call today. And if you want to learn more about our EV education products, we've got 4 key products that we offer. The first one is EV Innovators Club. This is the 48-volt go-kart. It's designed to be a 2 to 5 week course. It's really designed to middle school STEM programs. So I think it's probably less tailored to the CTE folks that are on the call today. But it's a great way if you can get, a middle school in your district excited about doing EV Innovators Club. It's a great feeder program to feed into your automotive program. And we have a lot of high schools that have students volunteering and mentoring in the EV Innovators Club. So we just create that programmatic connection across the talent pipeline. The next program is Intro to E-Mobility. This program is really fun. It's a motorsport racing chassis go-kart. It's a 48-volt system. This is like your shifter cart, like one step down. So it's a really fun electric go-kart to drive, but it also teaches just the fundamentals of e-mobility, and really gets students exposure to career pathways in EV at an early age. The next course is Intro to EV Technology. This is the full EV powertrain out on a table. This program is really designed for that CTE program that wants to introduce EV into their coursework, and really dive deep. There's like 45 lessons in this program. It's super in-depth, learn a ton about electrical theory, vehicle diagnostics. And then the final program is EV Build. This is like a capstone project that students do where they actually convert a car from gas to electric. It's a great way to drive interest in your program. It's typically a year-long project where students are de-icing the system. They're taking the gas engine out. They're installing the EV. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And it's a really engaging way to teach about electric vehicles when you can take a really cool car like this Porsche 911 over here and convert it to electric. I just saw a question pop up too from someone in the chat. When you say the course is a year long, what does that look like in terms of hours? It's a great question. It depends on a lot of like the options you want to do in the vehicle and how complex the vehicle you want to do is. We've seen schools do like really simple chassis, like a Volkswagen Beetle, in as little as like 250 hours on the low end. But we've also seen schools end up putting like 400 hours into like a full chassis build, or even more than that. So it can vary quite a bit by the level of complexity that you want to do within the build itself. And then if you want to meet with someone on our team, you can scan the QR code here, or I'm not sure if that link is clickable for everybody, but we're happy to meet with you all if you have any questions about what it looks like to build EV education programming at your school.
Tina would like to ask, would middle school students be able to get a certification or a micro-credential?
That's a great question. The middle school, like EV Innovators Club program right now, is not built to set up like a micro-credential or a certification for students. It is something we've been asked about a lot and something we're thinking through of like, how can we help deliver that to the students? One thing that we've thought about with this is like a lot of these like digital certifications or micro-credentials are often tied to like a digital badge or secured in the blockchain. And so there's like a good way to assign that to the student so it follows them over time is tough because they're young and often don't have like an email set up that's going to follow them throughout their career yet. But it's a great question and something we're definitely like excited about exploring more and how we do that. Awesome. Okay. And then lastly, subscribe to our newsletter. So if you're interested in learning more about like EV education in general, this is a good spot to be. Regular cadence on just little updates and like quick bites of information to talk about EV training. And with that, that's all the slides I have for you. So like, thank you everybody again so much for joining the call. If there's any other questions, feel free to email me, or I don't know, Kate, if we're able to hang out for another minute or two, but happy to do whatever. And thank you, AFT, for hosting and allowing me to join. I love what you guys are doing, and this is super exciting.
Yes, thank you so much, Maverick, for doing this. Quick update. Thank you, audience, for joining us. Now is the time to download your certificates. When the webinar concludes, you'll be prompted to rate and review this webinar. This feedback you provide for us and our staff and presenters helps us influence future offerings. And check out more webinars coming soon and on demand at sharemylesson.com/webinars. We hope you enjoyed the rest of your evening, and thank you so much for joining.